Welcome to our Barryville Area Arts Association sponsored Renaissance Women's Exhibit. You always hear a lot about Renaissance men, but you never really hear about Renaissance women. So to right that wrong, the Barryville Area Arts Association sponsored a Renaissance Women Exhibit. And I think you'll see that the artwork done by the women is at least on par with the work done by the men. This particular artist that we're going to start off with is Artemisia Gentileschi. And she had a really tragic but also inspiring life. She was an artist, her dad was an artist, and she got an apprenticeship, and her apprentice ended up raping her. And the father pressed charges because the woman didn't even have legal standing in those days to press charges. And during the trial, she was tortured to be sure she was telling the truth. Long story short, the guy was convicted and exiled, but he was so rich he came back a few months later and nobody said anything. So one of the works that she did was this, the biblical work. It's a biblical scene rather, and it's Judith beheads Holofernes. And in case you don't know the story from the Bible, Judith was an emissary who went to Holofernes, who had invaded her town, and he kind of thinks that she's pretty, so he orders wine, he tries to impress her, and he drinks so much that he passes out. And when he passes out, Judith cuts off his head with his own sword and later smuggles it back to her town so people can see that they are liberated. And what she did in this particular drawing was to replace the face of Judith with her own face and the face of her rapist with Holofernes' face. And if you look really closely, the sword that's used looks almost like a cross. So it could be seen as divine retribution. So she had a really sad life, but she produced a lot of amazing artwork. This is one of her self-portraits. Self-portrait with a lute, I think it's called. And you can see, if you look closely again, behind her eyes is that hurt that never really goes away. That's in all of her self-portraits. So she's one of the really amazing Renaissance women. The next is Francesca Galizia. She was also Italian, and she pretty much invented the still life. So this is one of her pieces. And she also drew part of that biblical story that Artemisia drew. This is returning with the head. So that was a popular story among Renaissance women for some reason. And it's also said that she put her own face in the picture. A very talented woman was Sofonisba Anguissola, and her work was so good that it got confused actually with a lot of famous Renaissance artists, even Leonardo da Vinci and those kind of people. So this one is of her and her sisters, and she had 6 sisters and 1 brother, and all the sisters did amazing things. She was the only one involved in art, but the other ones were famous for other reasons, and the brother was the only one who never really amounted to much. Judith Leyster was a Dutch artist, and when you think about Renaissance portraits, they're almost all really stiff and dour looking. And so she is the first one that's looking out, and she has a smile that's kind of playful. So I'm sure this isn't the kind of clothing she would wear to do painting in, but it's a self-portrait, and it's really different, and it shows that she was an innovator, and a lot of her work has been misattributed to men. We'll talk about that in part 2 of this video. And finally, we have Elizabeth Irani, another Italian and artist, and she did this Madonna, but it's not like a Virgin Mary from heaven. It's a Virgin Mary that's very down to earth with the peasant garb of the day, the hat, and she also did this Vision of St. Anthony. So I'm sure you can see that from just the very few pieces that we chose from the many that we had a chance to pick from, that the Renaissance women were at least on a par with the Renaissance men.